Right, do we have a 2, 4, 6, 8, 10? We have a quorum?
We've got Councillor Filipina, Daniel and Daniel online.
Yep, we have numbers. I know member Ashby is coming as well. Right, we will go into the debate. I've moved and Councillor Dalton has seconded. Are there any speakers to this item?
Councillor Newman.
Councillor Newman.
Look, just briefly, Chair, if I may, and I hope everybody had a good lunch, but I do want to acknowledge the officers for some good work, and it's taken some time to get to this point. But I do agree with what is being sought here. The officers will note my preference with respect to the removal of Takanini, and they will also know that for a long time I've nursed this argument based on Phil Jaggard's evidence to Judge Kirkpatrick and the Independent Hearings Panel for what was then the proposed Auckland Unitary Plan. And I thought that the Jaggard evidence was absolutely powerful. Chair, it is a rather local point of history, but Duncan McLennan, may he rest in peace, developed the farm at Fernag, which subsequently became the Papakura Army Camp in Takanini, and he was one of the pioneers in the Takanini community. The reason why he was able to develop that is that the land was developable. The reason why land to the north of that area has not been developed is that, frankly, it is not realistically developable, or if it is to be developed, the environmental impact is so high and the infrastructure costs are so prohibitive as is not to make it a realistic investment option, which is the reason why the development community to date have just not gone there. It has actually not been about planning handbrakes. It has been about other constraints. I do have some concern as to whether a sequencing argument, i.e. that we're not going to do it now because the council has sequences at some point in the future, is going to be the most realistic argument from a resource management perspective. But I do think that the environmental and the impacts and the infrastructure limits are very powerful arguments. The crunch will come though, Chair, not with the adoption of this. It will come with the fact that there are some very powerful development interests that will push back against this, and it will be led by the Crown. It will be led by Kāinga Ora, because if I look at Takanini and I support what is being proposed there, one of the biggest investors in that particular area is Kāinga Ora. They've already bought the farm, the old Burrells farm at Wasney Road, and they've got it there with a view to a plan change with Windermere that will be lodged very, very, very shortly. And so this debate around this particular future development strategy goes right against the development aspirations of not only private investors who want to capitalise the value of their land, but also to the government's aspiration for social housing, albeit in a terrible location. So I'll vote for this to go out to consultation. I look forward to the feedback. I hope that actually we can progress this very shortly after the feedback, the period for submissions has concluded. But don't think this will be an easy planning exercise. I think this will be very, very contested. Thank you.
Kia ora, thank you very much, Councillor Newman. To Councillor Sayers.
Thank you, Chair. I won't be supporting it, Chair. I just don't feel confident that the paper has enough depth to it. It didn't inform me correctly, therefore I don't know how it's going to inform others in the community. I will feed back to the officers upon their invitation what I think is missing from the report, particularly in the Warkworth area, to help them get into shape if this fails. But I won't be supporting. There's a number of things too that are going on in my mind around the whole question of where our infrastructure planning is going to land, and as well as Plan Change 78. And I'm not happy with the sequencing. Thank you.
Kia ora, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Baker.
So similar to Greg, I mean, Greg, I'm struggling to support this, and I probably won't, but I support the intent, but I am nervous about the relationship with PC78 and the work that we're doing, and I just don't think that we can take that siloed approach that we always seem to take, that we'll do this here and we'll do that there, and that somehow they don't cross over. They must cross over, and I've heard, and during the discussions today, you hear the crossover in the NPSUD is the commonality, and I think it sits there in about the second paragraph of the report. It talks about the NPSUD and why we're having to do this and the expectations. However, I guess the main thing for me is that I am very concerned about what this does for those areas, those urban settlements, those remote urban settlements that exist in rural areas that were left out deliberately of the unitary plan when we discussed future urban zones and we discussed the rural-urban boundary. We left them out to enable us to consider at times, and the Franklin Local Board has maintained for years and years and years, since 2010, the same view, that there should be the ability to have appropriate development in rural towns and villages going from the inside out, where appropriate. And so when you look at those settlements without future urban zones, Waiuku's a great example, and the plan change was just declined for that. There's a couple of 100 hectares of already zoned industrial land about to be developed, and yet people are going to have to travel to that. With all of the mighty climate change issues that we create, we deny the ability, not us, but the commissioners, but Beachlands is the same, we deny the ability for those types of settlements to be able to create the work-live situation, and this does nothing to allow that to happen. It says for Beachlands, which has doubled in population since the existence of Auckland Council, has now a population of 12,000 people, probably more. Every day, 12 buses line up to take secondary school age children to schools in Howick and in Pakuranga and elsewhere in Auckland because there is no secondary school. 12 buses. The Ministry of Education have made it very, very clear, without development in Beachlands, there will be no secondary school. There will be nothing. We have a road that is under huge stress, has surpassed the old Manukau City Council threshold for a bypass in Whitford. That was bypassed in 2012. Yet, without development, that does not get addressed. And here we are with a strategy that says, sorry, Beachlands, because you are a rural town, 12,000 people strong, you do not get the ability to mitigate the environmental harm that is created by, if we're going to concentrate on climate and concentrate on adaptation, we are denying the ability to react to that by saying you cannot have development. And for that, I think we have missed a trick. I think we have to be very careful. I do not want to see rural areas growing houses as opposed to growing what we should be growing in our rural areas. But where it is appropriate, it must be able to happen. And to slam the door on those communities is very, very poor on our part and will create all sorts of issues. I would vote for this if there was something in there to talk about how we allow appropriate development within those rural areas without future urban zones where it makes sense, and I don't know how we would that. But as it stands, it's not there, and so I will not be voting for this. I think we just need to take a little bit of time and get that right, because if we don't get it right, the harm is incredible across a whole lot of areas. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Kia ora, thank you. Councillor Dalton, Deputy Chair.
Thank you, Chair. I will be supporting this. For consultation, And we must take things out to consultation, and there's still an opportunity, obviously, for councillors and for public and developers, whoever wants to feed back. That's the whole point of putting it out there. I'm curious about the talk about PC 78 and the FDS as well, because I don't know that we're doing things in silos. I mean, I'm working with the planning team in my role, and PC 78 is discussed across all of these work streams in all of the departments. There's nothing happening in silo here. And I think it's important that people know that. And through the workshops, I mean, the first workshop that we had, I remember everyone was saying, this is great. I really like the direction on this. And now we've come to the point where it sounds like half the board half the committee want to vote against it, perhaps. But we must send it out for consultation as it is. It is aligned with all of our strategies. So again, I will say, if we're going to change our policies, let's have the policy discussion. Let's not just keep not funding what we're aligned to, which are our agreed policies already and strategies, or try and change it through changing a strategy that's going out for consultation. Let's have the policy discussion as to how we want to build this city and everything else we want to do for this city, not by stealth. That's undemocratic and that's unfair. So I support this going out, and I hope that councillors will take the opportunity to talk to Jacques and the team, and thank you, Jacques and Dawn and Claire and everyone that's worked on this. It's been a significant amount of work, and I really appreciate it, and there's a lot of learning along the way, that's for sure. So just like everything else we've sent out, let's send it out, get the feedback, and then let's have a debate. A debate that is full of the information that you need. And Councillor Sayers, I heard you say that it was outdated information. I didn't hear the specifics on what that was. So maybe you might let Dawn know what you have let her know specifically what the outdated information was, because that really needs to inform our decision when we come back. So I will be voting for it. Thank you, Chair.
Kia ora, thank you, Councillor Dalton. Councillor Walker.
I won't be voting for it. Having said that, I understand where the officers are at and we're going in the right direction, but woefully inadequate and not far enough. So at least we're making some progress on blacking out some areas where there shouldn't be development. The Riverhead example is a classic instance of silo thinking, where we've got one division which is planning that's out of sync with resource consents. Riverhead identified as under investigation earlier, the scenario playing out that this area could be developed. So that's the silos that are inherent in our planning. I totally agree with the comments that Councillor Newman made around Kāinga Ora and the absolute hypocrisy, frankly, on the part of government that talks about climate change adaptation and so on. Yet it is the prime mover allowing development in areas that should not be developed, that are not sustainable, are going to be flooded out, subject to storm surges and any number of things. So absolute hypocrisy, and that really needs to be exposed. So I have ongoing concerns. I raise these. My personal view is that the officers that are doing this kind of work need to be resourced much more, so we've got a far better evidential base. And certainly as far as specifics are concerned, I continue to generate specifics and I can support them and refer you to any number of reports, international ones and others, that substantiate what I say. Thank you.
Councillor Henderson.
Thank you, Chair. A couple of things. Yeah, look, I do have to say first and foremost that staff have worked extremely hard on this. I just really want to thank you so much for that. The numerous workshops, the huge amount of engagement that we've had with councillors, and all of the hard work by the desk light very, very late at night on this kind of stuff. I want to thank you all for that. You know, I've supported this all the way through and I'm going to plan to continue to do so today. And I would say that councillors do have issues with it, and I've heard a couple of issues, and that's fine. But to vote down something before consultation, that's an extremely high bar. It's an extremely high bar. It's telling the public that we don't even want to hear from you on this. We're just going to throw it straight in the bin. I don't want that. I'd rather hear from our residents on how we can plan our city a hell of a lot better than we've been doing in the past decades. The issue, briefly, is that we're constantly sprawling. We're constantly sprawling. We have been doing it for decades. We sprawl into places like the Northwest, Westgate, Red Hills. These are great examples where we've allowed development and then we've just walked away. We've got terrible transport up there. We have no swimming pool up there. We have so many things that are still needed in the Northwest, and we struggle for attention from this council, and we struggle in the absence of some of the kind of planning work that we're talking about today. So I see today as a way that we can kind of rectify these mistakes of the past and actually bring the public along for the ride on that journey as well, so that we're all in this together as Aucklanders planning. That's fantastic, isn't it? I just want to say one more thing. I've been hearing through this debate lots of talk about capacity and numbers, right? And capacity is part of the equation, but it's also where you're building. And I say this so many times. We need to protect our elite soil in the south. I think Andy's right in this kind of corridor, and that's why I stuck up for places like Paramahoe in previous debates. We can't be building on these places. We need to plan around nodes where we're planning our communities that are beautiful places to live. And some of the best land in the city, with the best access to public transport, to study and to jobs, is central Auckland, and we refuse to do it. We keep it down zone. We lock people out, and that's not good enough. And these are the sort of things that we have to change. And so I hugely support this. I support having a proper future development strategy that we can work on as all Aucklanders together, and we can make our city a hell of a lot better to live. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Turner.
Oh, I want to say thank you to everybody. I've been listening, and it helps to build my understanding. I want to say thank you to Councillor Baker, because he's really sort of shocked me into an understanding of this stuff. Look, this is kind of a little off to one side, but the Waitaki Ranges Local Board area is the third biggest local board by area, the fourth smallest by population, and 87% of it is covered by a special, a unique Act of Parliament, the Waitaki Ranges Heritage Area Act. Our small flung communities can support themselves, not in the heavy commercial or even light commercial sort of centre way that Councillor Baker talks about, but we can do it with arts and culture and tourism and things like that. They don't put a lot of pressure on infrastructure because they have their own water, they have their own sewage and all that sort of stuff. But this Act, which is a very small Act, says, as one of its objectives, it recognises that people live in the area in distinct communities, and it enables those people's social, economic, environmental and cultural well-being. The small communities in my area want to stay there, but they don't want to pay rates to Auckland and not be part of Auckland. And so I'll be voting against this. Thank you.
Kia ora, thank you. Are there any other speakers? I will finish up if there is. Oh, Councillor Ferry, sorry.
That's okay, thank you. I'm quite new to this piece of work and to the regional planning sort of realm as someone who until October was in local board land. And I think one of the things that really appeals to me about this work is that it is that bringing together, which so often in local board land you're just very focused on bits and pieces here and there, and you get to give some input, but it's not really that sort of region shaping, not transformational, but that real long-term regional thinking. And that's why I strongly support this going out for consultation, because I think we need to have those conversations with our community. This lines up with a lot of the other documents that we have been talking through with our community, and now we need to translate that into this is what it means for housing, this is what it means for how we develop as a city, and that's what this document does. So I'll be supporting it going out to consultation. Thank you.
Kia ora, Councillor, thank you. Right, I just want to also acknowledge staff and the huge amount of work that has been going on, and the fact you are following all the plans and strategies that we've updated through since 2017-18. There has been a significant number, including Te Tata Kia Tāwhiri, including Auckland Plan Refresh. I could name them all. And you've taken into account new hazards. This will be the first time that we have serious climate mitigation, reduction of emissions, and adaptation in our future development strategy. We are being far stronger on where we want and need development, I guess, and we're being honest. We're being honest that we cannot afford to build everywhere all the time. And, you know, we, as Councillor Henderson says until he's blue or red in the face, that they are in those areas already taking so much growth, and the infrastructure is still not catching up and won't catch up. So this is about putting some more, or trying to put some lines in the sand on where we can tell people we will have a plan for the infrastructure, have a plan for growth. And so if you're talking about climate change or you're talking about hazards, this would be the best way to start on that walk. I was a bit, and I could see maybe staff a little bit shocked of some of the questions and concerns coming through because of the 3 workshops that we were very clear. I was very about, does everyone support this? The feedback was immensely positive throughout those workshops, even to the fact where I was surprised, well, this is really, really going well. So I hope we get unanimous support for this going through. When we talk about live, work, play, you know, it has been brought up in past terms. That is just not how Auckland has ever done things, ever. 60% of people leave the North Shore every day to go work somewhere else. You've got the Northwest, most people travel out even when there are jobs in those areas. We have to make sure that we are investing in the right places with the small amount we have. I think we would all love to have far more money from the government, far more investment from the private sector in the infrastructure we need, but we know the reality is we have not kept up. What this plan does, it shows the hazards in a more open way, and it will continue to investigate throughout Plan Change 78 how it corresponds to that. But I will remind everyone that Plan Change 78, we have put that on hold, asked, and we got our way, which is fantastic, but that is around the hazards, around the flooding, around the stormwater, and making sure we use all the data from those horrible extreme weather events to back up our qualifying matters. Plan Change 78 cannot downzone from where we are today. So we are not going to get below that 900,000. We're definitely not going to get, I doubt, below 2 million, as mentioned by the changes coming through Plan Change 78. If we are wanting to downzone, which maybe that's what people want to do, we will have to put other plan changes in over top of it. So if we don't do this, if we don't put this out to consultation and have a clear direction for the long-term plan, we are again leaving our community, our city, our residents, our people, and the visitors who come here with a lack of direction, and we continue to have this all over the place look of development, which we've tried hard to direct or at least be clear about for people and give them certainty that we've got their back and we're investing in the right places. If we don't put this out in time for the 10-year budget, we've left it again to someone else in a future term and a future time to do. So I hope that we can support this to go out to consultation and we will get that information back, you know, and we can hear from the whole community, including the people who may have sent you emails in the last few days. Cool. Right, all those in favour?
By division.
Oh.
Councillor Fletcher has already answered.
By division, if you don't mind, Chair.
Right, there's a division. Right, all those in favour? Sorry, we're going through a division. Sandra will read out the names. Thank you.
Thank you, members. You are voting for the resolution as appears on your screen, just noting the change to Clause B. Chair Hills.
Of course, thank you.
Member Ashby.
Yes.
Councillor Baker.
No.
Councillor Bartley.
For.
Deputy Chair Dalton.
Yes.
Councillor Darby.
For.
Councillor Ferry.
Or.
Councillor Filipina.
4.
Councillor,
Councillor Filipina, you were being questioned that was your voice. I heard your voice. Would you like to say again what your vote is?
Yeah, Kapai Chair, 4 over.
thank you. Councillor Fletcher.
Against.
Councillor Foley.
Kia ora, the real me says yes.
Member Henare. Yep. Councillor Henderson.
Yeah.
Councillor Lee. No. Councillor Leone.
4.
Councillor Newman.
4.
Councillor Sayers.
Against.
Deputy Mayor Simpson. Councillor Stewart. No. Councillor Turner. Councillor Walker. No. Councillor Watson. No. Councillor Williamson. No.
It's 12:10. That was carried. Thank you. Right, now we have had the local board, I think we've got Alex and Richard have been waiting patiently for what probably feels like 100 hours to them, to present on the Central Library, item 10.